Hello, everyone. I am Braylon Williams, the host of this podcast, and this is season 4 of Enneagram Restored Podcast. First, let me just start off by saying, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for having a conversation with me.
Everyone, I'm Adam.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here with you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for having me back. This is great.
Thanks for allowing me to point people my way.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You know, it's funny that you're bringing up this theme, and because I'm in a very similar boat, and I'm excited for us to talk about it a little bit. Because as I said, I just recently got my credentials, so I can be a lead pastor, but that doesn't mean that immediately I have a church and a congregation and anything. So I kind of relate to you in that I'm also in a season of waiting. I know that one day there will be a church, and there will be a place where I can really explore that gift. But for the next couple months and year, it's going to seem like a lot of mundane. And my current job is essentially being a janitor at a church, which is quite a mundane job every once in a while. So that leads me to what I was curious for you, let me go into a little bit of what it's like for me with my experience and waiting a little bit. I'm a type 3, which is, I'm sure you've discussed it, the achiever. We're all about goals, ambitions, productivity. And I mean, that's me. I graduated college in 3 years. I tried to, be the discipleship, I'll make goals and then achieve them as fast as possible. That's the way that I am. And so, for me to see this goal so far in the future, pretty much every day I've been spending my time reading a lot of books from other pastors and theologians trying to prepare for that season. I'm praying almost every day. It's not necessarily I can do a whole lot, but in preparation for that goal, I find myself okay, I have to read this book, then I'm going to read this book, then I'm going to talk to this person, then I'm going to think about this ministry. It's very set something I want to think about, figure out a plan, and then move on to the next thing. So that's what my waiting has been like for this season. It's been a lot of, okay, I see that. Let's try to align everything in order.
I love that question because there isn't a single human that escapes the human reality without having to navigate waiting. It is part of being human. It is part of walking and stumbling and running and falling and getting back up in the human story. And so much of waiting is one of the primary ways in which God transforms us. There is not a single person that has escaped this life without having to wait on something. There's not a single person in the scriptures that didn't have to wait either on God or wait on a circumstance to change or wait on something in them to grow and to mature and to shift and to change. And so one of the great ways that we become more of who we're created to be is through waiting. And waiting is a very active process. But the tension is that we think it's inactive. We think that we've been halted. We think that we've been paused. We think that we've been put in a timeout. And yet, waiting is this growing up process. In that quote that you just shared by Sumant Kidd, she wrote the book When the Heart Waits. And so much of our transformation happens in the midst of that pause. It happens as we take stock of what's really going on. It happens as we reflect. It happens as we navigate our way through the things that we can't force to happen, and we have to release ourselves to waiting for them to happen. It happens through the process of surrender, which nobody likes to do. We like to be in control. We like action. We like movement. And so much of life is those things being in a posture of pause and trusting that God is working behind the scenes.
That is where I'm at in life right now. I was just talking about this to my husband. We are just in a season we're in a very challenging in-between season right now with his job, and just like our family life. And it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like every day I'm like, God, I know that you've got this taken care of. I know that you've got it figured out. And I know that my work, especially as an 8, is to wait on you. It's like, how many times throughout scripture does it say, wait on the Lord, wait on the Lord? And waiting is never like sitting there twiddling our thumbs doing nothing. Like waiting is a very active, it's very active. It means to abide, to be with. And so it's like, how do I remain present in this season and not kind of disassociate in all these ways? It would be easier to, I think about my type as an 8, less like go and blow, get ahead, take care, control, do all the things. Or like 7, like gluttony. It's like, oh, I'm going to indulge in this and indulge in that to numb this really difficult season. And so, yeah, so I think about what it looks like to wait, especially with my type. And as an 8, gosh, like most of the times it just looks like to stop moving, stop doing. I even find myself around my house. Like I have little kids and my house is always in disarray. There's always something to clean up. There's always something to do. And I just feel myself like I do not stop moving from the time I get up. And sometimes it's like, I just need to sit down. I just need to sit down on the floor with my kid and play. I need to sit down with my little one and feed him before I put him down. I just need to sit and I need to be. And so I think for a type 8, a lot of times that's what waiting looks like. It looks like getting physically still so that my head and my heart can get to this place of waiting on the Lord and abiding in him in this season until the next thing. So yeah, I feel like that's a very like high level answer.
I love your analogy first. That's a great one because it really suggests such a trust in the Lord. And I don't always do it like that. I'm not always looking very good. I'm sometimes hanging on the edge of the raft or pushing ahead and then coming back for the raft again, usually I would say. But to be honest, I've had to do a lot of active waiting. So it has made me a bit more patient. And that's good. I can say with time and now being in my 40s, I can see it. And it usually looks like me having big hopes or dreams for myself or my spouse or our children or my clients, like anyone in my close-knit community. And then I'll want to push them faster than we can go. And so I have to allow myself to pace. And that is something even today I had to do with my kids. We brought our calendars out and I got into my, the 3-7-8 triad, aggressive, assertive mode. And I had, okay, do you want to go to this dance camp? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? What about this musical orchestra? I saw they had master classes and my daughter's like, I don't see that's my season right now. And what I do is I take a deep breath and I'm like, but you're such a gifted pianist. Like, and I'm just like, ragged breath, I'm just like, okay, so sometimes it's like, you know what, this gift is going to be a familial gift for her. Or for my own writing, something where I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this chapter, but then I want to write my next book. And my agent will remind me, like, promote this book. And so these are, like we're hearing each other kind of say, like, sometimes active waiting means other people helping you to actively wait.
Active waiting. Well, I like the the word that you used before it, active waiting. Just the fact that the act of waiting itself is obedience. If you're a person of faith, if it is doing something, like waiting is doing something, and it's really, really hard to do that because you have to let go of something. You have to surrender something in order to achieve that. We're going to get into the types, and I'll talk specifically about type 3s a little more because we're 3s. But most people want to seize control, want to do something in the midst of waiting, and waiting is a resignation of I can't do anything about this. I need to I need to. Active waiting is, it's not passive, but it's an act of obedience or an act of faith to hang on without trying to do something, without trying to react negatively, without blaming, without getting caught up in anxiety and slipping into analysis paralysis. So I don't have a good definition, but I would say that waiting is an active thing and not a passive thing, if that makes sense.
That's a great question. And I love that you kind of distinguish the active waiting versus passive waiting. Because I think very often we're just passively waiting for things as if we're not participants in what's happening. And active waiting kind of presumes anticipation of something. It's when you're looking forward to something, even if that looking forward is looking forward to something being over, right? And it's that, and I think liminal is exactly the right word. I use it a lot. I've studied it a lot. And it's that weird in-between space when you're not where you've been anymore, but you're also not quite where you're going yet. And so usually you feel very untethered. You feel kind of lost, like you're in limbo. And the weird thing about it, in that active waiting space, and sometimes passive, because sometimes there's not much you can do except just to wait. And even that can be an active thing, just by being mindful of it and aware of it. Is there are a lot of times where we don't even recognize that the waiting is over anymore until we look back and recognize we're already in the next thing. Without an awareness, or without like a hard date sort of a thing where we know this event is happening on this day, a wedding, a funeral, an engagement, a graduation, any of these really clearly defined things, a 21st birthday, a whatever it is. When we don't have specific dates assigned to things, it can just feel like, I don't know when this season's going to be over, and I really can't wait to get to the next thing. But there's no really clear marker for me. So what does it look like to be in that waiting space? And there are a lot of people who, when they talk about that liminal space, say it's really the only time that we're actually able to learn from God is in that space, because it's when we're unsure of things. And so the way I try to approach it is with a really conscious sense of openness, of, is there something for me to be learning in this space, or figuring out, or even just asking questions about?
As you just heard, there are so many wonderful guests that are coming on the show this season, and I just can't wait for you to hear the first episode, which drops on June 27th at 10:30 a.m. Central Time on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Don't miss out. A lot of good things are being said.